Jürgen, you've just recorded the longest unbeaten run in the club's history, and yet if you lose to Arsenal at the weekend, you'll go out of the top four. Now, obviously, I know you're not going to think about defeat, but what I was going to ask you is, as a manager, that clearly shows how incredibly tight and difficult the Premier League is, that you can do that and still go out. So as a manager, does that excite you, or does it just make it harder or more pressure, or is it
both? Both. Okay. This league is very exciting. Absolutely, I can see that, even I'm completely involved. But yes, of course, this increased the pressure as well. So that the league is unbelievable. So when I was in Germany, people spoke about the best league in the world. Where is it? Maybe some people thought it would be Germany. No, it's not. It could be Spain. Maybe there were times when it was Italy. For a few years now, for sure, it's a Premier League, no doubt about that. And it's not a competition. It's just how it is. There's not a competition which is the strongest league. It's just how it is. With the amount of world-class players in this league is absolutely incredible. I think the English clubs came through this very difficult pandemic so far the best from an economical point of view. And yeah, that's it. That will not get worse for the next few years. I can see that the league will get stronger and stronger and stronger. The managers get better and all these kind of things. So it's it's a tough race. It is indeed. And you have to, when you have the momentum, you have to treat it really carefully and sensitive. And if you don't have it, you have to fight with all you have to get it back. And that's what we always try.
And it almost means you have to break records to win something, as you've already done this season.
Yeah, I'm not in the record chasing thing, but if it happens, it's always a good sign. If it's a positive record, obviously, it's always a good sign. But we had different records, and then the things went a little bit the other way. I'm not sure how long we were unbeaten at home last year, and after that, all of a sudden, or we won. How long we won all the games at home, or were unbeaten, and all of a sudden we have lost 5 or 6 games in a row. So I don't want to come in that situation again. It was felt very uncomfortable. But we are a good football team, and that means we are responsible for putting top class performances on the pitch, and that's what we try.
Okay, we'll go to Chris and then to Dom.
Okay. I approached this subject with some trepidation, given what happened last time. But I mean, Michael Edwards has now announced he is leaving at the end of the season, and I was just wondering what, if any, impact that has on you, in terms of how working relationships behind the scenes, because obviously Julian Ward's taken over. I mean, how does that work? How should you relate your relationship with Julian Ward? What can we expect?
Very good. Yeah, very good. Well, very good. I know Jules for a long time. Jules is longer in the club probably than I am. So I met him on my first or second day probably. Since I know him, he's an absolute expert in all things around player scouting, transfers, all these kind of things. He worked very closely together with Michael Edwards in the past. So I don't think there will be any kind of rusty things to overcome. It's just it's a normal thing in life, in business, that people leave the position they were in for a few years, and then somebody else has to take over. But in this specific case, takes over, did parts of the job already in the past. How it is when you are get promoted from what you do to the assistant sporting director to the sporting director. So I think will be a very smooth takeover.
I mean, you wouldn't know this necessarily, but in English football, the idea of a sporting director 10 years ago was almost mocked in England. I mean, it's completely changed now. Could you just mention a little just more broadly why it is important, you think, for you as a manager to have that person? It never used to be like that in English football. It's completely changed. It feels pretty much.
I would have come here 10 years ago and would have told you a sporting director was really important. So you would have told me again, go back to Germany and deal with that there. It's still a completely different role in England than it is in Germany. In Germany, the sporting director sits on the bench. In Germany, the sporting director is talking in press conferences before the game, after the game, all these kind of things that never here in England, and the CEO of the club speaks in Germany. I think you saw all interviews of Karl-Heinz Rummenigge when he was in that position, or Aki Watzke when he is in that position. So they all do that. It's never happened in England. So still a difference. Sporting director. When I came here, I wanted a sporting director. I think that was the reason why Michael had a similar job before, but like why he got the job in the end. Let me say like this, because I don't want to deal every day on a daily basis with players' agents. And I really think that takes energy away from the really important stuff you have to do. I speak to players constantly. I do that, but it's not the right thing that a manager speaks to players about contracts. In my understanding, it's not, because even when a player is very important for you and you give him then the offer he didn't want to hear, like you say, okay, you can earn this and that. And he says, well, I think I'm much more, but these conversations should not happen between the responsible person in all sports things, football things, and so you need somebody in between that, and that's for the player it's the agent, for the club it's the sporting director, in my understanding. So that's it. Apart from that, I did what I always did, and it's like we talk about players, but yes, in my first press conference we spoke about the transfer committee, right? So that worked out pretty well since then, I have to say, but it's still the same. Yeah, it's an important job. I really think it's an important job, but there's no influence on my job. But when it was like this in the past, that the managers did all these kind of talks with agents and players, my day is pretty full. I don't know exactly when they did it. But then I'm maybe not skilled for that. I'm the only one who thinks it's not right to do that. But for us, it works out how we do it now.
Dom and then Paul to finish.
Yeah, again, I was last year when you lost to Villa at Villa Park, you said it was the result was a slap in the face. It jolted you. I was just going to say after West Ham, is there such a thing as a good defeat to sort of shake your mind and go again, or do you not see it like that way?
Each defeat is good after you came over it. So that's how it is, but it needed a bit of time for different reasons. But yes, the defeat is important information. But in the moment when you lose, there's no good defeat. There's no good moment for a defeat. But after that, we had no time. We could watch a lot of football in between that game and our game. Unfortunately, not with us in being involved, just players of us. And yes, we have. You always want to see, and you always have to show a reaction on different things. So I spoke after the game about the first goal we conceded, which I thought was a foul, and that's of course it is a foul, by the way, but it's of course it's because of you feel really hard the defeat, and it's not, you don't think it's fair and all these kind of things. That's in an analyze it looks completely different. The goal I hated most was the counter-attacking goal. Because we had to defend that much better. So the other two goals were obviously set piece. The second set piece was incredibly well taken and really well executed. But first goal a foul, second goal we have to defend it better. So that's what you have to learn of it. That's this bit of aggression, what we have to show more. There are things we can do much better. But scoring there against the team in form twice and being very dominant. We all probably saw, I'm not sure how often you saw West Ham, but against us they played again. Maybe like the old West Ham, if you want, like set pieces and counter attacks. We were really in charge of the game. They had better moments. They had always good moments against us. We won at home against West Ham years ago, 3-2. So it was a really tight game, and all those kind of things. So you can struggle against West Ham, absolutely clear. But the one goal I hated most was the goal after through the counter attack, and that's what these kind of things we have to improve. Against Arsenal, they do counter attacks as well, definitely, especially if you let them. But especially if you play a team who's going for counter attacks and set pieces, you have obviously to avoid set pieces in the first place if possible, and to defend set pieces better. For that, you need sometimes the help of a referee with eyes, and sometimes not, and sometimes you have to do better. And but the rest we have to improve, and that's what we knew before, but we saw it in this game again.
Thanks, Dom. Finally, Paul, to finish this press conference.
Yeah, again, I was just going to bring up that actually. The Trossard goal, the Fornals goal, Foden goal, AC Milan goals, maybe the Atletico goal away from home. There's been a bit of a pattern, the Griezmann one from Felix João's pass. There's been a little bit of a pattern where it feels like you said then to Dom about you need to be more show more aggression. Is it a physical thing? You need to make more challenges in midfield, or it just feels like there's a bit of a pattern with those goals?
There's a bit of pattern, but it's not. When you will, well, maybe you watched it only recently now because we bring them all up, but they were still all different. What we did, we lost challenges in the right, in very decisive areas. For example, Atletico, we lost the challenges twice in especially the Griezmann goal to our Felix in a half right space. So it's like another team will have a look as well before the game, in the game. They learn in the game what we do. So where are they? Where's the weakness? Where can we pass the ball? Blah, blah, blah. Heck, but with João Felix, we knew that he will drop in this half right space, and you have to win the challenge there. So in the end, you can see how it is when the pass is played. Then it's really tricky from that moment on. We still made mistakes after that, but the decisive mistake in this moment, it was the challenge, because we outnumbered them in that area. I think we were at least with 2, if not 3 players, but he still came out, and that's a problem with pressing. You invest a lot to outnumber the player on the ball, but then you should win the ball, because otherwise you are in a worse position than you would be if you would man mark, for example, in the decisive area. Trossard was a bad one as well. Again, decisive challenge there in the box. We could have defended better. We all know that. So there are patterns, but they're still different. But we have to improve in that area. But we knew that all the time, because we scored an awful lot of goals, but we conceded too many as well. That's how it is, and that's where we have to improve. We all know that you only get consistency through defending, and we have to defend on our highest level. And tomorrow is a very good example for that. If you don't defend against us on your highest level, you shouldn't even try to go there. It makes no sense. They're too good for that. They have now clear patterns. They have now clear things, what they do. They have the players they want in the position they want them to be, and all this kind of thing. So that's a big challenge. But on top of that, still the best way to defend is to keep the ball. And that's what we have to do better as well. So many things. Completely independent to the West Ham result. We, even with the 25 games unbeaten, blah, 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 run, we always knew we have to work on it. And that's what we actually do. But we're constantly interrupted by either injuries or international breaks. That's a little bit the problem. So we play games, then we could have time, then they're all away, then come back. So it's, unfortunately, in football, to work on solutions, you need time, but you don't have time. That's a tricky thing, but we still are on that subject, you can imagine.